In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Peace be upon you, dear listeners. This is the story of a man whose faith was tested in the depths of the sea, and whose patience became the key to his survival. Once a mighty merchant ship set sail, heavy with cargo and crowded with traders from distant lands. The sea was calm at first, glimmering under a golden sun. The sails fluttered gently, and laughter echoed across the deck. Everyone believed their journey would be prosperous and safe. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. As the ship ventured deeper into the open ocean, the sky suddenly darkened. Winds began to howl like furious beasts, and the calm waves turned into monstrous walls of water. A violent storm struck without warning. Thunder split the heavens, rain poured in torrents. The ship groaned under the weight of its cargo and the rage of the storm. Fear spread like wildfire among the passengers. The captain, struggling to keep the vessel steady, shouted over the wind, "We are too heavy. If we want to survive, we must throw some of the load into the sea." His words struck terror into the hearts of the merchants. Their goods were their livelihood, their pride, and their future. But between life and wealth, there was little time to choose. One man among the crew pointed toward a newcomer, a quiet, humble trader who had joined them for the first time. "His cargo is the heaviest," the man said coldly. "If we throw his goods overboard, the rest of us might be saved." Greed disguised itself as logic, and fear became cruelty. The merchant pleaded, "Brothers, why only me? Let each of us sacrifice a little. The burden will be shared, and all of us may live." But the storm had already clouded their judgment. Panic, greed, and selfishness ruled their hearts. The crowd turned on him. They forced him toward the rail, ignoring his cries. And then, with one desperate shove, he was thrown into the raging sea. The cold waves swallowed him whole. He fought to stay afloat, gasping for breath, shouting for help. But the storm roared louder than his voice. Darkness covered his eyes, and exhaustion dragged him beneath the waves. At last he surrendered to the sea, and to the will of Allah. When consciousness slowly returned, the first thing the merchant felt was the rough warmth of sand against his skin and the gentle hiss of retreating waves beside his face. His clothes were torn, his body bruised, his lips cracked from salt and exhaustion. For a few moments, he didn't even remember where he was, only that he had survived the wrath of the sea. As his mind cleared, he sat up weakly and looked around. Before him stretched an endless horizon of blue water. Behind him lay a small island, wide and silent, and a place untouched by human hands. There were no homes, no smoke, no sound of life. Only palm trees swaying in the humid wind, and the cries of distant seabirds echoing through emptiness. The merchant realized he was completely alone. No ship in sight, no companion, no sign of civilization. Just him, a stranger stranded between sea and sky. His throat burned with thirst. Stumbling through the sand, he followed the faint sound of trickling water until he found a narrow stream flowing through the rocks. He drank deeply, feeling the sweetness of life return for a moment. "O Allah," he whispered hoarsely, "you saved me from the sea. I do not know why you brought me here, but I trust that you have a wisdom in this." Days turned into weeks. He learned to survive in this silent exile. He gathered fruits from trees, hunted small animals, and built a small hut from branches and leaves. It wasn't much, just 4 fragile walls and a roof that creaked in the wind, but to him it was a palace of hope. Each evening, as the sun melted into the sea, he sat outside his hut watching the horizon, praying that a ship might appear. Yet none came. The days were long, the nights colder. Sometimes he spoke aloud just to hear a voice, even if it was his own. Loneliness became his greatest test. Still, he refused to despair completely. Each time sadness crept in, he reminded himself, if Allah could save me once, He can save me again. And in that thought, he found enough strength to face another day. One more sunrise on the island of loneliness. One evening, as the sun sank behind the horizon in a blaze of orange fire, the merchant prepared his modest meal outside his little hut. He gathered dry wood, struck 2 stones together, and coaxed a small flame to life. The faint crackling sound gave him comfort. For a brief moment, the loneliness around him felt less heavy, as if the fire's light kept his fears at bay. He roasted what little food he had, and for the first time in days, he hummed softly to himself. But fate had not yet finished testing him. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, scattering embers from the fire. In seconds, the dry palm leaves of his hut caught flame. He jumped to his feet, shouting in panic, "No! No!" He rushed toward the flames, trying desperately to put them out with his bare hands. The fire only grew stronger. Sparks leapt upward, lighting the darkening sky like red stars. The heat seared his skin, smoke burned his eyes. Within minutes, the hut, his only shelter, his fragile sanctuary, was gone, reduced to ashes before his eyes. The merchant collapsed onto the sand, his chest heaving. He stared blankly at the rising smoke, tears streaking down his soot-stained face. "Oh Allah!" he cried, his voice breaking. "Why is this happening to me? You saved me from the sea, but now you have taken even this small comfort away. I built this with my own hands, and you allowed it to burn." He buried his face in his palms and wept bitterly. "Oh Allah, have I done something wrong? Am I being punished? Why do these trials never end? I am alone, helpless, and forgotten." The night grew colder, and his fire of despair burned within. He had nothing left. No food, no shelter, no hope. He lay down on the bare ground, staring at the stars through his tears. His body trembled, his stomach empty, his faith shaking. Yet even in his anguish, a faint whisper of belief stirred in his heart. Perhaps even this loss has a hidden purpose. But exhaustion silenced him, and with heavy sorrow he drifted into sleep under the open sky, unaware that his greatest miracle was only a few hours away. The dawn came softly, brushing the island with pale light. The merchant stirred in his sleep, his body still sore, his mind weary from sorrow. As he opened his eyes, something unusual caught his attention, a faint, rhythmic sound echoing across the water. He sat up quickly, squinting toward the horizon. At first, he thought it was another cruel dream. But no. Through the morning mist, the outline of a ship appeared. Its sails glimmered in the sunlight, and small boats were being lowered into the sea. Men were rowing toward the shore. The merchant's heart raced. He stumbled to his feet, waving his arms wildly, shouting with all his strength, "Here! I'm here!" His voice cracked, his legs trembled, but tears of hope filled his eyes. Could it be real? After weeks of loneliness, could someone truly have found him? As the small boat approached, one of the sailors stood and called out, "Are you alive? We saw smoke from this island and came to help." Smoke? The merchant turned in confusion, and then realization struck him like lightning. The fire that had destroyed his hut, the very tragedy he had cursed the night before, was the reason they had seen him. The column of smoke rising into the sky had been his signal for rescue, though he never meant it to be one. The sailors reached him, helping him aboard their boat. He was too overwhelmed to speak. When they gave him water, he drank it like a man tasting life again. Finally, trembling, he asked, "Brothers, how did you know someone was here?" One of them smiled kindly. "We were sailing nearby and noticed black smoke rising above the trees. In the sea, when we see such a signal, we know it means someone needs help. So we came to check, and we found you." The merchant froze, speechless. His tears flowed freely as he whispered, "Subhanallah. What I thought was my destruction became my salvation." He looked at the sky, his heart trembling with gratitude. "O Allah, you are the most wise. I doubted, and yet you never abandoned me." That morning, as the rescue ship sailed away from the island, he realized that even ashes can become a light, when Allah wills it so. As the rescue ship sailed across the calm waters, the merchant stood at the deck's edge, gazing at the fading outline of the island that had been both his prison and his place of awakening. The sea, once a symbol of terror, now shimmered under the golden sun like a mirror of peace. He felt the wind against his face, the same wind that once carried storms, and whispered, "O Allah, how mysterious and merciful are your ways." The sailors, curious about his story, gathered around him. He told them everything, how he had been thrown into the ocean, how he fought the waves, how he built his small hut, and how that very hut burned down before his rescue. The men listened in silence, their faces filled with awe. When he finished, the oldest sailor placed a hand on his shoulder and said gently, "Brother, you speak of that ship which cast you away. Let me tell you the rest of the story. That ship never reached its destination." The merchant looked up in shock. "Yes," the sailor continued, his voice heavy. "Pirates attacked it in the middle of the night. They looted every last piece of cargo and killed everyone on board. You are the only one who lived." The words struck the merchant like a bolt of lightning. He closed his eyes, trembling. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. Only tears fell silently down his face. Then, slowly, he fell to his knees and whispered, "Subhanallah, what I saw as injustice was your mercy all along. You saved me not once, but twice, from the sea and from death itself." He bowed his head in prostration right there on the ship's wooden floor, whispering, "O Allah, your decisions are perfect." We humans are impatient and blind. We cry when things break, not realizing you are building something better for us in silence. That night, as stars filled the sky, the merchant looked upward with a heart washed clean of doubt. He finally understood that every trial hides a gift, and every loss is a lesson in disguise. And so he prayed softly, "O Allah, grant me the strength to thank you in every storm, the patience to trust you in every silence, and the wisdom to see light even when all I see is smoke."